This morning, we heard from President Trump at the World Economic Forum, the annual meeting. He made a presentation or a speech to those in the audience and on the panel. And I wanted to, without you having to go listen to all of that from him, give you a little bit of a high-level overview of what was said, at least from a market-centric perspective. And I do want to just say, as we get started with this, is I'm challenged as a content creator to talk about Donald Trump because it's not necessarily about my personal opinions here, but just because it is a tough subject to talk about on the internet. So please give me grace. I will do my best to stay as unbiased and market focused as I can when I do these. And if you enjoy my videos, do me a big favor, especially on today, hit that thumbs up button, support my channel, especially as I go through this challenging time as a content creator talking about such controversial stuff. Let's jump in. So during President Trump's presentation, I took some notes and I wanted to just give you my high level take. And if you saw anything or heard anything different from this, please comment it down below. I'm not perfect. This is my best approach to what was kind of said that I think could impact the markets and how the markets react today. We'll get into in just a second. So he focused heavily on wanting oil prices lower. And of course, how is he going to do that? Well, there's a couple different approaches. For example, stopping the war with Russia and producing more oil in the United States, all sorts of things like that. But he really focused on this a lot. He seems to very adamantly want oil prices lower to help with the inflation story, not just in the US, but abroad. He also wants less regulation for US oil producers. As I mentioned, that's kind of his hope to produce more oil, is to make it more accessible and easier for US companies to create more oil from home. He also seemed really tough on Canada, and he even had this to say about Canada, which, check it out.
One thing we're going to be demanding is we're going to be demanding respect from other nations. Canada, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. We're not going to have that anymore. We can't do it. I don't know if it's good for them. As you probably know, I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you, et cetera, et cetera. But Canada has been very tough to deal with over the years. And it's not fair that we should have a $200 billion or $250 billion deficit. We don't need them to make our cars, and they make a lot of them. We don't need their lumber because we have our own forests, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody.
So to my Canadian friends who took offense to that, I'm sorry, but if you'd like to join us, I'm just kidding. He's also strong on immigration, or at least strict on it, I guess. You know, this is a very controversial and tough one, but this does actually have economic ramifications because, again, if you stop too many people from coming into the country, there's actually a void of jobs that can be inflationary there. So that is something to be at least paying attention to. Obviously, there's opinions all over the place on this, but I do think in the short run, that could be inflationary if there is a real true stop of flow of people who are taking some of the kind of lower income jobs in America. Again, if there's a void in the labor market supply, there could actually be some inflation that comes with it, as people in the United States who want those jobs will have to get higher raises to make it worth it to them, whereas perhaps illegal immigrants would take those jobs. That's my very basic understanding of that topic, and please don't kill me. Next up, he's very adamant about making products in the United States. This seems to be a big kind of campaign runner piece for him. He wants American businesses to make products in the United States, and also wants foreign countries to even come make your products in the United States. And if you do so, you get tax benefits. I think he mentioned as low as 15%, which is, you know, a very good tax savings. He also made it very clear that if you're essentially going to be making your products and exporting them into the United States, imports will be paying tariffs, which is an important distinction here because, again, he's basically saying, come to our country, make it, you get a tax break, make it outside, and if you want to access the US consumer base, you have to pay a tariff. Trump also sounded surprisingly optimistic on China and on Russia. Now, I actually thought he would be more the opposite of this. I thought he was going to be more tough on China and Russia and more friendly to, you know, our G7 allies like Europe. But he actually kind of did the opposite. He seemed actually quite frustrated with EU regulations, and he also was frustrated with the military to GDP ratio spending being conducted by European nations. He says that the US is paying the difference. Again, kind of basically claiming that other countries or other allies are not pulling their fair share with the whole Ukraine-Russia stuff. He also partially blamed the OPEC nations' refusal to reduce oil prices he also contributed the Russian-Ukraine war to what they're doing, I guess, with not reducing prices. Basically, by not reducing prices, the OPEC nations he's claiming are actually supporting the war. And finally, he seems adamant about wanting to denuclearize with Putin. This is not a new thing. This has actually gone on for decades, where the US and Russia have these waves of more nuclear stuff and then less nuclear stuff. So he seems to want to do this, but I wanted to end this kind of comment because, of course, this is all controversial stuff. Whether it's Biden or Kamala Harris or Trump or whoever the president is, I do think a good exercise is to write down the things that you want to see a certain president do and see if they actually do them by the end of their term. Because Trump here is making some pretty big claims, and many of these things would be arguably pretty good. Like, obviously, everybody wants the Russia and Ukraine war to end, but I would challenge you, just write these things down, or schedule an email to yourself for 4 years from now and ask yourself, did immigration stuff improve? Did we see less, illegal drugs coming into the United States? And hold these politicians, whether it's Trump or somebody else, accountable for what they claim to want to get done. I think it's a really good exercise, regardless of who the president is. So now we can take a look at some of the market's reactions to this major event. But before we do that, I do want to just remind you that if you haven't already taken advantage of it, the Edgefinder is free until Monday for everyone who's watching this. If you have not already picked up a copy to try out until Monday, again, now until Monday, you can access the report completely for free. And if you have not already picked it up, we'll leave a link down below in the description to where you can get that. Within 1 minute of filling out that form, you'll be able to pull up the Edgefinder and play around with all of our market data, everything from our sentiment tools to our seasonality tools, and the brand new, very exciting U.S. economic heat map, which will allow you to get an idea of how the U.S. economy is performing. And side note, for Edgefinder fans, we do have coming up soon a Europe, UK, and Japan economic heat map, as heavily requested by our customers. So don't miss your chance to try it out. All the information is linked in the description. So the S&P 500 is back towards the all-time highs here. In fact, actually printing just shy of an all-time high today. So market seems overall, again, kind of buying into the hype that is the administration of Donald Trump. We'll see, of course, like I said, whether that truly comes to fruition. I do want to just warn everybody that, the market is very excited, very hyped up right now about less regulations, about lower oil prices, potentially lower inflation, which is, again, a controversial one depending on how tariffs go. But so far, tariffs seem to have been rolled out slowly by Donald Trump, which is arguably a more positive thing for the market. If tariffs were to come in fast and heavy on all countries everywhere very aggressively, that could actually be more inflationary, and the market might freak out about that. But there is still worries about inflation. They haven't gone away, because if we take a look at the 10-year yield, you can actually see it's up today. So inflation expectations may rise here alongside perhaps the strong economy that is driving yields higher. This is, I think, something to worry about if you start breaking yet again through those highs back up towards that 5% 10-year yield. Again, that would signal that the market is worried about inflation, and worries about inflation could coincide with some steeper sell-offs in indices like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, which look very strong right now. Price action looks great, and I continue to be long myself, but I'm cautious here. I'm trailing a stop, and if things change drastically, I'm going to look to lock in profits and move on from these trades. Gold also continued to hold its gains here, as again, there is still a lot of geopolitical uncertainty with everything going on, and with Trump back in office, I think that gold has a little bit of a premium attached to it. He's just a volatile guy. Again, like what I said, whether you like him or dislike him, he always has a strong take on what's going on. He has a strong opinion on stuff, and that strong opinion and sudden reversals and changes can cause a lot of uncertainty in the markets. And so I think that gold is floating towards all-time highs for that reason. Personally, that's not really a reason to take a trade, and my own personal trading strategy does not revolve around what Donald Trump is saying. It does revolve around kind of the market data, and market data right now still has me at a +2 score on the Edgefinder, so it's going to keep me from taking any trades. Speaking of top setups right now, Bitcoin and oil are also setups. I'm already long Bitcoin, so I'll show you that trade, and then I'll also discuss a little bit of my thoughts on oil. So you had this big move up, pull back, found support. I've got my stop loss on my Bitcoin trade just below this market structure around 100,000. That should be a level I would imagine that we should see continued bounce from. But if we don't, I'll stop out and take my profits around 98,500. Taking a look at oil, which is pulling back here pretty sharply the last few days. Oil price is down about 6%. I'm actually kind of interested in potentially getting long between the 50% to 61.8% retracement. That would be a let's call it 7.5 to 9% pullback in the price of oil. Again, Trump does seem very adamant about wanting to produce more oil, but I still think that there's a very strong, U.S. economy that is demanding a lot of it. And until those things really kind of come to fruition, meaning more oil is truly produced, I'm still going to trade what's in front of me, which is strong economic data. And I'm going to favor the long side on oil, at least for now. If something drastic changes in the future here, I think, we'll adjust. But right now, I think oil is getting sold off here a little bit off of the fear that, Trump's going to produce a ton of oil and that's going to cause oil prices to slide, which may very well happen. But I think it could be overdone in the short term. And I actually like the risk reward to possibly getting long in this area with a stop below structure. And if I take that trade, I'll share it inside of our Discord channel. And if you're not already in our Discord channel, all the information is linked in the description down below. I also wanted to mention that today's video is sponsored by DNA Funded. And a little bit of information about DNA Funded is that they have payouts in as low as 7 days. They do profit sharing up to 90%. They have unlimited trading days on 1 and 2 phase challenges, and you can trade 800 plus assets all in one prop firm. If you're interested in checking out DNA Funded, the link to do your due diligence and check out for yourself is down below in the description. And if you use code A1TradingDF10, you can get 10% off any challenge you'd like. Thanks for watching this video, and on the screen right now, you'll see some other options of other videos we put together that might be helpful to you in your trading career. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.